What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Movie Battleground. My name is Matt, and today we got a fantastic match coming up today between Chris Clark and Madeeh Rehman. I believe I said your last name right?
Man, let's
No, I
move
didn't.
on.
Can you pronounce it? That way I can say it because I don't read things
You
well.
pronounced it. I didn't say you pronounced it right, but you pronounced it.
Okay, so I guess it's close enough. So that being said, Madeeh, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I have food today, so it's not going to be an issue like it was last time, I hope. But, I'm excited.
And I see you brought that watermelon shirt back.
I didn't bring it back. It just stays on. I don't change.
It just stays. All right.
This is my actual
Good.
skin. It's not a shirt.
All right. Yeah, there's a few people like that, but I'm glad to see that represented. And now, Chris Clark, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing perfectly fine. This is going to be this is my second match. I had fun last time. I cannot wait to rock this sucker, Matt.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for this match because
All right, calm
these
down,
guys,
Chris.
unfortunately, they're 0-1, and they're trying to get their first win. So it should be a great match nonetheless. So before we get into it, I'm going to explain the rules. There's 4 main rounds. It could be anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes in that range, and we'll go into a speed round. If someone's up 4-0, it is a knockout, and then we'll end it there. However, if it's 3-1, 2-2, we will go into a speed round, which the new rules are that the first 2 will be 30 seconds for your first one, 20 seconds for the next, and then we'll go into a third speed round, which will be 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and then 15 seconds. So the last round, if it comes up to the last point, you can, have a little more time to get your point across.
Mhm.
So without
Sounds
further ado,
good.
let's get into the match. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's rock it.
All right. So first question. Obviously, we got the mediocre success of Justice League hitting us. Didn't do as well as what a lot of people thought it was going to do, unfortunately, because I thought it was kind of good. Not great, but it's still good. So I was hoping it would have made something. So with that being said, we thought we would ask what DC movie, either in development or just anything you want, or that's potentially, I should say, being made, excites you the most after Justice League. So we will start with Chris.
Mhm.
I'm going to Madeeh, and then we will go into our main thing. So Chris, which one excites you the most?
Well, look, Justice League was a piece of garbage, and going off of that movie, you don't really have a lot of hype going into seeing these characters again, in my opinion. So we want new blood. I said Batgirl, because Batgirl has such a plethora of great stories from the comic book. She's also a female-led superhero. She's amazing. She has creative stories that you can also incorporate her father, J.K. Simmons, and he can have a bigger role, which he was a huge highlight of Justice League. And I feel like Batgirl itself as a film would be so interesting because we have never seen it before. We've seen a Batman movie, we've seen a Superman movie. Let's get something new on the table, and Batgirl, I think, can serve that justice and do it well.
All right. So Madeeh,
Yep.
which one excites you the most besides Batgirl?
Honestly, Batgirl doesn't excite me at all. So
Okay.
I chose Batman. Now, regardless of what you thought of Justice League, regardless of what you thought of Batman versus Superman, everyone is loving Ben Affleck's take on Bruce Wayne and Batman so far. For me, I couldn't pick Batgirl because basically all we know is the storyline and that it's going to be with Joss Whedon. But for me, having someone like Ben Affleck as a star, a phenomenal director in Matt Reeves, who just came off of 2 of the greatest Apes movies I've ever seen, and also some of the other things that happened in the movie so far, that is what excites me the most, and is the upcoming Batman movie.
All righty. So you guys are going to have 6 minutes to duel it out. So whenever you guys start, 6 minutes will begin.
Okay. Look, with
Go ahead,
Batman,
Chris.
yeah, with Batman, literally, Madeeh. Batman we've seen before, and with Batgirl, we have a female-led superhero movie directed by Joss Whedon. If you've watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he
Which I love.
knows how to. he knows how to write women. If we can get a Batgirl movie in the vein of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that will, in my opinion, overshadow anything. Matt Reeves, right, is directing Batman,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Matt Reeves and Ben Affleck. Like, look, Ben Affleck doesn't have this whole project with Batman has just been so chaotic, and I don't think the atmosphere is there for the actual film itself to be a success when you can bring in something new and something creative that nobody has seen before, and there is no negative atmosphere associated with that.
I don't think that is really a strong point because yes, there has been some rumors, but we don't even know what has actually happened. Like all of this is rumors, all this is hearsay. With the way the media works, you could tweet out the words "ah crap" and everyone's like, "Oh my god, Ben Affleck hates Batman now." He said, "Oh crap." None of it. We don't know what is true. Now I agree, Joss Whedon's take on Batgirl can be exciting, but I don't know anything about it other than it's going to be Joss Whedon and Batgirl. And to me personally, the best thing Batgirl ever did was get shot by the Joker. Like that was the most intense portion of her storyline that I've ever seen, and that was my favorite storyline for her, is her dealing with that. I don't think you can have this movie where she's doing everything and then all of a sudden she gets shot. It would be too soon, and I think you'd have to lead up to it.
Yeah. You keep going.
Yeah. Okay. The other reason I'm really excited more for Matt Reeves' take on Batman is because of some things that he said in the past. Now, obviously, it was a couple months ago, so I'll remind everyone, he said it was going to take a Hitchcockian approach to how he was going to get inside the mind of Batman. It's going to be like a noir-driven detective movie, I think was how he said it. And it's basically just a story of Batman through his point of view almost, is the way he described it. I'm summarizing here. I don't know the exact quotes. Fact checker, whoever it is, can double check me on that. But it was around that line of getting into Batman's head. And in previous movies, we've just kind of seen Batman do things, but we've never really seen what goes on in the mind of this crazy, and he is crazy, just hero that dressed up as a bat and saves people. The other thing that I'm really excited for is that Batman has a crazy rogues gallery, which includes the Joker. We have Jared Leto. Whether he's going to enter or not doesn't matter. The one I'm more excited to see is Joe. I'm going to screw this up. Manganiello. Is that how you say it?
Manganiello.
Manganiello. Thank you. His take on Deathstroke. Obviously, he's a physically imposing force, and I don't think he's gotten as much due as an actual actor as he should have. And I think this will be a great spot for him to do that.
But look, you can incorporate Batman's rogues gallery into Batgirl and still get that same power with a new flavor.
But I feel like the entire time I'm like, you know what? I wish Batman would be facing these people.
But you're talking about this unique way with it's focusing solely on his point of view through the detective aspect. I turn you over to Mask of the Phantasm. Did that in spades.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Did that
but
in
that
spades.
Was not as big of a scale as it will be with Matt Reeves.
Yeah, but look, this is a movie that it just doesn't have the kind of, compared to Batgirl, which is totally new, totally fresh. We're gonna go back to Batman with Ben Affleck, which has gotten mixed. His performance in Justice, is he still considered the best Batman we've had? I know he was considered that during Batman, but during that Justice League performance, I don't know if I want to see more of him as Batman. Plus, he doesn't have any interest being Batman anymore, so we're not guaranteed to even have
going off that. Going off that, with all the rumors that are floating around, I'll humor you with what my idea for the movie is going to be. This could be completely wrong. Obviously, I'm not Matt Reeves. I haven't written the script. I'm not Ben Affleck. And the line that stuck out to me the most in Justice League, when he said it, where it was him and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman talking in the back room near the end of the movie, before the climax, where he says, "I can barely do this now," showing that he's aged, showing that he's tired, that he's gone past his peak performance. If he ends up handing off the helm of Batman to someone else, and that's what part of the movie is, I'd be totally okay with that. And I think that would be a great way for him to hand it off. If he does the entire movie and then goes into kind of like a Batman Beyond sort of vibe, where he's, you know what, I'm old, I'm rugged, I can't keep physically doing this, but maybe I can be the behind the scenes guy training the next one. And I'd be very happy to see that, because the last time we saw that was Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, which really was not done well. And I think this could probably take it to the level where it deserves to be.
The thing is, though, with you asking for a Batman movie that rushes the lore and rushes Bruce Wayne
I don't
literally
think it
out
will
of the
rush the lore.
universe. Yeah, out of the universe, when you can have a Batgirl movie that can just seep itself and stay in the universe and give us new stories and not just focus on Bruce Wayne, who we've seen
What would you
over.
expect to see in a Batgirl movie, though? Everything I can imagine that I would see in a I would much
Mhm.
rather have Batgirl start as a side character in the Batman movie, and we build that kind of bond to her, and then really like her in that movie, and then have her in the in her own standalone movie a couple years down the line,
A
where she has
Batgirl, yeah,
where she
a
has her
Batgirl,
own
yeah,
growth.
a Batgirl movie can establish Jim Gordon as a particular character, because you don't really get that in Batman movies. He's not real, besides the Nolan movies, taking those aside with Gary
Yeah,
Oldman.
okay,
He's
obviously.
kind of an ignore. Yeah, but look, Batgirl herself, she is a strong comic book character.
100%,
She can
but I don't
stand on
think
her
she's strong
own.
enough to lead her own movie just on the name yet. I think people need to be introduced to her, and they're not going to do this first. They're going to introduce her first, and that would be the smarter move. And having her introduced in a Batman movie and then going to Batgirl would be a much better plan for them to go.
I
Instead
think
of
she's
going,
already in the
let's.
property for that. But
She is, but not as much as people think. I mean, I'm a nerd, so I knew the Guardians of the Galaxy 10 years ago. People didn't know about them in the general public until 4 or 5 years, whenever that movie came out.
Yeah,
All right.
but look,
All right, so we're going to get into our final thoughts, and then I'll come up with a decision. We'll start with Chris, and then we'll go to Madeeh.
Okay.
Just get everything you want to conclude this round with in there, and then I'll make my choice.
Okay, look, compared to a Batman movie with stuff we've seen before in Mask of the Phantasm, other Batman movies focused on Bruce Wayne, and you're focusing on a Bruce Wayne that doesn't want to necessarily be in this role anymore, and you know that, and it'll take you out of the movie regardless of what kind of situation they write in to get him out of that costume. If you start off with a Batgirl movie, you get to be in that world and not taken out of, and don't have all that atmospheric drama or rumors or all that bullshit. You just have a female-led movie that can feel like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, can have a new feel to the DC universe we've never had, and that is why Batgirl I am looking forward to the most. Not Batman, Batgirl. Bada bing, bada boom.
There we go. All right, Madeeh, you're up.
The reason I'm not looking forward to Batgirl as much is because it wouldn't be as exciting to see. Now, I love Batgirl as a character, but having Matt Reeves, who is a visionary director, taking on a Hitchcock approach to Batman, I mean, there's not really much more that not only a fan of the Batman comics as much as I am can ask for. When you have someone of that caliber wanting to work with the DC universe so much with Ben Affleck's script, and then having his plethora of villains, even if he is being written out or not, whatever path they go, as long as it stays true to that Hitchcockian noir-driven detective movie that they're going for, I think it'll be the first time we see a live-action Batman in the way that Kevin Conroy did so well in the animated series and in the Mask of Phantasm, as you said. That is what I'm looking forward to, is a live-action version of what Kevin Conroy brought to the small screen.
All right, so there's round one. This was a very close round between you guys. For me, there wasn't a whole lot of hits towards the other movie. That, as far as what I heard, there were some, of course, but so take that aside. I had to kind of think about just something that kind of pointed out to me, and something Chris said about how Batgirl could be something new for the DCEU. I think that's going to slightly give him the point on this. It was really close. The fact that he brought up Hitchcock almost got it, for you, but something new that could be something good for the DC universe. So it is 1-0, Chris, but we do have a lot of time where he could come back and win. So with that,
awesome, good fight so far.
So there is a movie coming out, or it's already out, depending on where you're at, called Wonder Wheel. It's directed by Woody Allen. Regardless of what you think of the man and his personal things, he still has made some pretty good movies, like Annie Hall and stuff. So, without further ado, speaking of Annie Hall, what is the best Woody Allen movie? And we're going to start with Madeeh first, and then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll go into the open argument.
That's good.
All right. So, full disclaimer, I've never been a huge fan of Woody Allen as a filmmaker. Not necessarily my cup of tea. A few movies of his I've liked, Blue Jasmine being one of them, but the one that I love the most was Midnight in Paris. Reason being, it's not necessarily your typical movie. It's a love story, and it's about finding yourself and finding happiness in where you are and when you are, rather. Uh, and I found that the way that it talked about time travel or used time travel as a storytelling device was something I'd never seen before, and it was quite possibly one of the only movies where I sat down and I finished the movie and I was like, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I didn't have anything bad to say about it at that moment. Like it was one of those few movies where I was like, this is what filmmaking should be like. That's it.
Alrighty.
That's all I got for now. I'll go on more, but first I'll let Chris talk.
All right. For me, yep. I picked Annie Hall. Annie Hall is one of these seminal romantic movies of our generation. It kind of is it is what anybody thinks of when you think of Woody Allen. I've seen it twice, and it just had it kind of, for a romantic kind of it. I think it's one of the first movies that ever had the two not be in a relationship at the end. It kind of catapulted that mentality for future romantic films, and Annie Hall is a cinematic masterpiece.
Alrighty. So now we're going to the open round. So feel free to claw each other's throats.
All right, I'm gonna say this. I did
hard.
originally pick Annie Hall, and then when I didn't get it, I rewatched both of these movies, and I realized Annie Hall, the first time I watched it, I was going through a breakup, which is why I thought it was so good. And on the second time when I watched it, I was like, man, I haven't been in a relationship in a while, and I'm happy I'm not in one. So this movie is just kind of him being down on women and finding something about love that he can't seem to find love, which I thought was weird, especially when you look at his personal life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, this movie's better when you're going through a breakup. I can't understand why, but it's not really a great movie when you're just watching it in a regular day when there's nothing going on in your love life. And I can't watch a movie like Annie Hall without feeling sorry for Woody Allen that he put it on screen, because it's really just him jerking off on camera for an hour and a half or 2 hours, however long that thing was. I don't know.
Look. When you compare Annie Hall to Moonlight in Paris, you actually hit it right on the head. Annie Hall makes you feel something if you're in that similar situation. What does Moonlight in Paris do? It's a great sci-fi comment. That's what I mean. Midnight in Paris do for you. It's a great sci-fi fantasy kind of thing where he goes back in time and in the 20s, and it's funny. Owen Wilson kills it. But does it make you feel does it make you feel anything emotionally after it, like you did when you were going through that breakup with Annie Hall? I wouldn't necessarily say it does.
Anything good when I was watching Annie Hall, though. Like I was feeling like
it gave you emotion, though. It gave you emotion.
It gave me emotion, but so did Independence Day 2. We're not here to talk about how good of a movie that is because of the emotional response I had. I had a migraine after watching Independence Day 2. That is not a good sign if I'm watching a movie. When I say that Annie Hall was just, it's only a breakup movie. It can only be classified as a good breakup movie. I can't in my head think of a reason why I would like that movie if I was not going through a breakup at that moment. Like it's in that very specific time frame. Midnight in Paris, I think, is a much better movie because you can watch it no matter what space you're in. If you're upset after a relationship, during a relationship, don't care about relationship, whatever, you can watch that movie and feel some kind of relation to it, because everyone at some point says, I was born in the wrong decade, or I should have been born in this age. I should have been born in this age. Everyone has said that. Not everyone goes through an awful breakup. Some people are lucky that way. But I feel like I can relate more to Midnight in Paris in the story of finding love and being accepted for who you are, instead of, oh, I broke up with someone. It kind of worked, but then it didn't. And then we tried again, and then it didn't. I don't need to know about Woody Allen's relationship problems.
But look. When you consider which movie is the greatest, and you have to look at it from that point of view, Moonlight in Paris is a good movie. I'm not knocking you on that. It's a great movie. It's a good movie. But how is it great when Annie Hall, for what it did for the actual film industry, Annie Hall basically revolutionized how romantic films are portrayed on film. That's a sense. What has Moonlight in Paris done for the actual industry and filmmaking in general? It hasn't done anything compared
I
to
don't
what
think
Annie
it
Hall
has
has
to
done.
do anything for the film industry for it to be qualified as a good or a bad movie. I think a lot of movies are phenomenal.
I understand that, but how do you say it's a
I think
greater
Annie
movie
Hall
than
was.
something that has?
I think Annie Hall at the time was considered revolutionary, but
Mm-hmm.
people more now are noticing that it was a very flawed movie. Whereas Midnight in Paris, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that people will be going 30 years from now like, you know what, it doesn't hold up as well. Midnight in
Every
Paris
great
will
movie
hold
has
up.
its flaws, but
Yeah,
still, that its impact still affected people at a certain point. Midnight in
at a
Paris,
certain
when it
point,
came
I think
out,
Midnight in Paris is a
didn't
better
at any
movie
point.
overall, whereas Annie Hall is
Uh-huh.
just for that specific crowd. I don't think you can have a great movie that only affects one specific group of people. Whereas if you have another movie which is still great and affects a wider variety of people and has that effect on 99% of the population compared to like 10% of the population, I think it's a much better movie. I don't think you can say that Annie Hall is better than Midnight in Paris because it has legacy. Every Woody Allen movie is going to have legacy when it's all said and done. Because the fact he makes like 700 movies a year and then half of them get awards and recognition. Midnight in Paris, for me, is one of the movies that we're still fairly recent from when it came out. And I think 20 years from now, it'll be noted as the next wave of Woody Allen movies. And it's the greatest one of this new wave that he's kind of come into. Whereas Annie Hall will kind of just be, it's that breakup movie that he did in the 70s.
It's just Midnight in Paris didn't have any impact when it did come out. That's.
I don't know what the impact of Annie Hall was when it came out, except for a bunch of people who just broken up going, you know what? That's right. But Midnight in Paris, when it came out.
The impact was that it's the first romantic film of its kind to really kind of not have the two people at the end. It started that whole bad ending kind of thing for romantic comedies in that era. It kind of really catapulted that. It's
nice
not a happy ending whatsoever.
To have a bad ending in a romantic movie. But I don't think that having that be the first movie that did it, I don't think that makes it a better movie at all. I think that just makes it the first one that did it. Being the first movie that did something doesn't make you the best. It just makes you the first one.
It makes you the most impactful, which makes you a great movie. And the fact that it's been acclaimed.
Sure, it's impactful because you were the first one to do it. Andy Serkis in Lord of the Rings, the first one, it was the first time he did motion capture at such a high level. That doesn't make it a great movie. It's a great movie because of the rest of the surrounding. I don't think you can separate. I agree that it was impactful, but I don't think it being the first of what it did makes it better. I think it just makes it the first. It came out earlier than some other movies that may have been down the line. I mean, we know this business, you could have a movie come out 7 years after it's done. Annie Hall could have been done 10 weeks before it came out. Just because it's the first doesn't make it the best. I think when you look at it that way, you can't say that Annie Hall is a better movie than Midnight in Paris just because it came out first. I think it's just the one that brought him into the spotlight, and then Midnight in Paris was him really finding his stride in this new age.
All right, so we're going to go into the final discussion, conclusion, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll conclude the round. So we'll start with Madeeh, then we'll go to Chris, and then I will have my decision.
All right, like I've been saying, Annie Hall is really only a good movie if you're going through a breakup. If it's a regular day for you, there's no relationship drama, then it's a half-decent movie at best. The best part of that movie, and the only part that I can honestly remember, is him sneezing into that pile of cocaine. That's the only part of that movie I remember. Other than that, it's just a movie about him not being able to find love, which is too reminiscent of his personal life for me to care. Midnight in Paris is a tour de force about finding love that is true and love that is real, which everyone needs to know about. And it's also a movie about nostalgia and knowing where and when you belong, instead of Woody Allen jerking himself off because he can, and with Annie Hall.
All right. Annie Hall, for what it's worth, has impacted. Even if you're going through a breakup, and it impacts you. It makes you feel something, and it's also impacted the actual romantic industry, the film industry. It's impacted and influenced. Moonlight in Paris, I will give you that it is a great film. I'll give it to you that it might be more universal in who it focuses on. Just because it's all that does not mean that it's a better film. I don't see how it is a better film if one film is just so revolutionary for the industry. It just blindsides me. So that's my take on Annie Hall.
All right, so that's going to conclude round two. Very good fight all around. This one was also really close, but it came, like I said, it always comes down to one or two things you guys say, and you know, I liked that, Chris. You know, you said that Annie Hall makes you feel something. It was revolutionary, but you know, Madeeh, you shot that down with how like even Independence Day made you feel something. So you know,
Independence Day made me feel something good. Independence Day 2 made me feel something else.
Yeah,
I
I
can't believe
assumed you
I
were
said
talking
something
about
else.
the sequel, but
Oh, I
you
still
know,
hate that movie. It's haunting my nightmares to this day.
oh yeah,
The fucking
it's
accountants
garbage.
in that movie. Hey, don't get me started.
But there's something that you said, Madeeh, about how Annie Hall is only good for a breakup movie, but Midnight in Paris is, you know, you can watch it anytime. And though I disagree with that, and I think you can watch Annie Hall whenever, I think that gave you the edge in this round. So I will have to give you the point. It is tied 1-1. Very, very close.
It's hell of a better so far, Chris. I respect that. I love how I'm so much more civil when Henry's not on screen with me.
I know. I was
He
honestly,
has
I was
that effect
preparing
on me. He
for
just makes
something
me like
insane going on.
yell out in insanity.
Which I mean, that's all fun and games too. But
No,
you know,
I had to fight against Moonlight in Paris.
Midnight in Paris.
Midnight
Jesus.
in Paris. My bad.
Moonlight's a great movie too, by the way.
Moonlight in Paris.
Moonlight.
yeah, Moonlight in Paris is great. So we're gonna go into the third round
Not
now.
on VHS.
And I don't read a lot of these person's novels. Some people know who Jane Austen is. I know who she is. She made some good novels that
I didn't know she wrote
went
Clueless.
I met her in a bar once, I think. Oh, no, different Jane Austen.
So yeah. So I almost said Annie Hall. Jane Austen. There we go. Jane Austen. Yeah, transitions. What's the best adaptation of a Jane Austen film?
Novel.
So we're gonna start with Chris, then we'll go to Madeeh, and then we'll obviously go open forum. Chris, what's the best adaptation of a Jane Austen novel?
Jeez, this question came out of nowhere. Look,
This really was. I was like, what the hell is this question doing here?
yeah. Anyway, I chose Pride and Prejudice just because, look, you have Keira Knightley and you have this whole, it's very Shakespearean. It's a very romantic Shakespearean film. And it's a period piece that really nails the period, and the acting in it is superb. And I have to just say that I've never read the novel. My sister loves this movie, and it's just a solid movie from beginning to end, and Keira Knightley kills it.
All righty.
That's all right.
Yeah, Madeeh.
Okay. All right.
I totally did my homework.
First question is, what's your favorite Jane Austen novel? Second, what's the best adaptation?
Okay. Now, unlike my cohorts here, I actually have read the books because I grew up in England and you read those books there. And for myself, I chose the movie Clueless. Now, Clueless was not directly written by Jane Austen, but Clueless is based on the story Elle, written by Jane Austen. For me, I chose that movie because it is probably one of the better. And the question says best adaptation, and I thought that was the greatest adaptation, modern adaptation of one of Jane Austen's beloved stories. We'll get into more of why I don't think it was Pride and Prejudice later, but that's all I'm going to say for now.
All righty. So with that, fight it out, guys.
All right.
Look,
okay, I got to say this before we start.
Go for it.
First of all, I want to say this: Keira Knightley was phenomenal in Pride and Prejudice. I'll give you that. And I agree that it was very Shakespearean feeling, and it was a very well-designed set for what the period was. But other than that, the movie was very far and beyond boring. Like, I couldn't stand it. Watching Mr. Darcy on screen, I can't remember what the actor's real name is. And no disrespect to him, but he was wooden as hell in that movie. I basically thought I was watching a robot on screen. Mr. Darcy in the books is meant to be this charming character who's just kind of stuck up. And I think that Colin Firth in Bridget Jones' Diary was a much better version of Mr. Darcy than this guy was. Colin Firth in the TV show of Pride and Prejudice was much better than the guy in the movie was. They should have had Colin Firth in this movie, and it would have been a much better movie, and I would have given it to you. But they had this random guy who was basically monotone and said words like this and will not say anything other than in this tone, right? Oh my god, this movie upset me for so many reasons, because as much as I love the original book, the characters were all off from what the characters were in the book. Like, Keira Knightley was great, but everyone else was just kind of all over the place. Like, no one cared. Mr. Darcy was wooden. I basically was cheering for, oh jeez, and I'm forgetting his name now. I apologize. The army soldier who she was hitting on at the beginning of the movie. I was cheering for him throughout this movie. I was like, please get Keira Knightley. Mr. Darcy's character in this was boring. He was annoying to watch. I grew up in a house with a bunch of British women, my mom and my aunts, and they all hated this movie. They loved Keira Knightley, but they despised it because it killed the book that they saw in their childhood. Now, moving on to Clueless. The original story of Elle is obviously very different, but also very similar to what is happening in Clueless. It's a story about a girl who realizes that the love of her life is right there. And the cast that they have in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. And in a sense, going back to what you said earlier for Annie Hall, this movie is much more iconic than the Pride and Prejudice movie that came out. People are still quoting As If from Alicia Silverstone. Brittany Murphy was astounding in this movie. Paul Rudd looks the exact same as he does today somehow, but he was also phenomenal in this movie. Everything that they did in Clueless was a much better adaptation for the modern day and age than Pride and Prejudice was. I realize we have less time, so I'm going to let you talk before I run out of breath.
It's all good. It's all good. I just liked hearing you talk and shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again. Look, you said that this was a romantic comedy that really stuck out. It did. It's okay. I mean, just because people can quote things doesn't make it a good movie. I mean, how many people know Mean Girls? And is that a good movie? Hell no. But look,
I will disagree on that one, but that's a fight for another day.
That's a pipe for another pipe dream. But look,
Next
you
round,
have
round two.
You have Pride and Prejudice, which is basically essentially about Keira Knightley not wanting to marry somebody and in love with somebody else. The archetypical British. It's a British stereo. It's a British folklore mainstay. This movie, compared to Clueless, just makes me clueless. Like, why would you choose Clueless, which is a bubblegum comedy, over this, which has a lot of depth? Clueless doesn't have as much depth as Pride and Prejudice does.
No, I would agree with that, but the question isn't asking about what movie is better. It's saying which is the best adaptation. And when you're going away from the source material, I can't say that you're a solid adaptation of something. Yeah, whereas Clueless actually stuck ridiculously well to the source material, but just brought it into a modern age. But
the art of adaptation is to stick to the source material, but to also give something back to the audience that they don't necessarily expect them to resonate.
Who Clueless to bring that kind of story to a Jane Austen novel? Like, if you're saying that you expected someone to bring like a 2000s vibe, like with the flip phones and everything, to a Jane Austen novel, you would have been shot out of your mind.
Yes.
No, this is what I'm saying. When you're talking about the best adaptation, I would say that Clueless is by far a better adaptation of one of Jane Austen's lesser-known works, honestly, with Elle, compared to Pride and Prejudice, which, I mean, has been done over and over and over again. And the movie, although, I guess, technically speaking, is a technically better film. Like just on a
Yeah.
technical level, it's
You
a
just
boring movie,
admitted.
and it.
You just admitted it was
No,
technically
I'm
better.
saying like on an Oscar level, it's going to get more nominations, and it did get some
Yes.
nominations, if I'm not mistaken. I think Keira Knightley got
Mhm.
nominated in set design, stuff like that.
Yes.
But I would say that the better adaptation is Clueless. Other than Keira Knightley in the set design, that movie is awful. The TV shows did it better. Every other series that they do on the BBC for Pride and Prejudice is better than the movie that they made. I can't consider Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 movie, to be the best adaptation of a Jane Austen novel when when 7 TV shows have done a better job of that same source material on a lower budget. I can't acknowledge that. I think when you have Clueless as, by and large, the most
Mm-hmm.
popular and greatest Elle adaptation that has ever been made thus far, I think that is where you draw the line where you say, you know what, this is the better adaptation. Clueless is the better adaptation over the farce that was Pride and Prejudice.
But in the end, I feel like I am correct in the assessment that Pride and Prejudice is better than Clueless. I think we've gone home for.
No, yeah, it's technically a better movie, but I think that when you're talking about an adaptation, then Clueless is much better. I don't think anyone could have thought of adapting the script to the way they did Clueless from Elle. The only other adaptation that has been on that kind of level, I guess, is Bridget Jones' Diary and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, but those weren't as great movies. Bridget Jones' Diary was pretty good, but I don't think it was on the same level as Clueless was, which is why I didn't choose between that. If Bridget Jones' Diary was a better movie, I would have picked that, but I think that Clueless is a better adaptation of Elle than Pride and Prejudice is of Pride and Prejudice, the original novel.
I wouldn't even consider Clueless an adaptation. I would consider it a reimagining. It doesn't really adapt. It puts it into another setting and just
I think that's a synonym, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm not going to go into grammar here, but I'm pretty sure those are the same thing. I think if you're adapting something, it's still reimagining it. Like
but
we're getting into weird wording here.
We're getting in wording here.
I'm telling you that Clueless is a much better adaptation, and that's how the question is worded: best adaptation to the original novel. Whereas Pride and Prejudice was, compared to the other Pride and Prejudice, I can't say it's even better than the other novel, other visuals that we've seen of it. Whereas Clueless is a much better adaptation than anything else that we've seen from Jane Austen. And I've read the book, so I actually know what I'm talking about.
That's going to conclude the main arguments, the open forum, if you would call it that.
Can we not just cut it? Just cut it. Like, just make your decision.
So,
this is such a weird discussion.
Final thoughts in, real quick. So, just say anything you want. Throw some final nukes in there at your opponent. So
Okay,
we'll start with Chris.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I already know that you guys can tell that I'm full of fucking bullshit, but this is what I have to say. Pride and Prejudice is a great adaptation. Clueless is a great reimagining. They're not, yeah.
All right. There we go. Madeeh.
Okay.
Say what
that makes it really hard to come back from, Chris. I gotta hand it to you. That's a very difficult statement to retort.
that was my goal. That was my goal.
Okay. Like I said, Pride and Prejudice has been. Both of these movies have different adaptations that have been done throughout cinema, whether it's on the big screen or the small screen. Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, was probably the worst adaptation of all of the ones that they've done, because the TV shows that they've done, and I encourage everyone to go see them if you're curious as to what I'm talking about. The TV shows standard is much higher. For Clueless, the other Elle adaptations have all kind of been in the same vein as Pride and Prejudice, where they've kind of put it in that period. But for them to adapt it for a modern age, I think was the greatest way that they could adapt it. And that is why the Clueless is a better adaptation of a Jane Austen story. Final thing.
Yeah.
I'm wearing watermelon socks too, but I'm not wearing pants, so I'm not going to show you, because I feel like it'd be very awkward for me to show my socks on screen without something else showing too.
I mean,
Oh,
This could be the first X-rated episode. So there we
I
go.
felt like I was going to be in that one anyways, but I'm not doing it tonight. It's cold out.
I understand. So with that, that's going to conclude this round.
How difficult of a
you know,
decision is this, Matt?
On a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd say it started out as a 9, and then as the round went on, it dropped to like a 7 or a 6.
I've given us
But,
some
you
credit
both
there.
still did good. Yeah, you both still did good, but yeah, I'm gonna give Madeeh the point on this one.
That's a shocker.
If you gave me the point, I would have. Imagine if I beat you.
If you had given him the point, I would have shut my computer down and left.
No, it
You know
really
what?
did come
This is
down.
what I would have done. I would have stood up, everything in full view, and then just like shoved it in the camera and put my computer down and left. That is what I would have done in protest. Your audience would have had to love to look at that. That's what it is. And I haven't shaved in a while, so you're in for a bigger treat there.
Oh, there we go. Depending on when people come in, it would have been really awkward for them to come in. It's like, oh, movie
just put that as
Battleground.
the
What
trailer.
am I
Just
watching?
put my last like 2 minutes as the trailer for this match.
All right, we'll just have that. We'll use that as a promotion shot. But no, what gave Madeeh the point to me was how he said that the TV shows did it better and adapted it better than Pride and Prejudice. I think that's what really stuck out to me. But not as close to the others, but still, you both did pretty good.
Are you
Not-
kidding
not
me? He
the best.
lapped me like twice in Mario Kart with that.
I'm trying to be nice. So,
I wasn't gonna say that, but all right. Chris is still driving around in circles. He's like, "Where did I go?"
Yeah.
there you go.
I'll
So,
recover.
you know who is exactly like Jane Austen?
A
Gerard
dragon.
Butler.
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler.
Brilliant
So,
segment. Absolutely impressive.
Gerard Butler is a very fascinating human being with his acting roles and the choices he's
Great
made.
way to word it. Brilliant way to word it.
You could get something like Olympus Has Fallen, or you can get something like The Bounty Hunter. So it's very interesting what he's done his entire career. He tries to be an American, but his accent clearly is still not of that descent. It becomes funny after a while. So with that, great transition. What's the best Gerard Butler movie? So we'll start with Madeeh, and then we'll go to Chris.
All right, you guys are gonna find out real quick. This is freaking a hilarious match. I chose How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Just wait. Just wait for this. This is.
I can't even do this seriously. Oh my god. Okay. I chose How to Train Your Dragon 2. Gerard Butler, for those of you who are curious, plays Hiccup's father, Stoic, who is the leader of their tribe. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm on Battleground.
All right. So there you go. Chris, what's your favorite?
Well, drum roll. My favorite is How to Train Your Dragon 1, which Gerald Butler plays Stoic's father. Stoic. I mean, whoopsies. Whoopsie daisies, whoopsies. He plays Stoic in that movie as well. And this movie is a joy to the heart, joy to the soul, and joy to the world. Merry Christmas.
All right. There we go. How to Train Your Dragon versus How to Train Your Dragon 2. We could have changed it to what's the best How to Train Your Dragon movie, but we're fine.
You really could have. It would have been the same argument. Oh my god.
We would have. So,
Oh Jesus.
what's the best How to Train Your Dragon movie, guys? Find it out.
Look,
Okay,
the first time.
I'm gonna assume we both love both of these movies, right?
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, we love both of them. This is
both
like
of these are fantastic
comparing
movies.
pizza to potatoes. Yeah,
Exactly. Like both of these are phenomenal movies. I think for me, what put How to Train this is gonna be very civil. I'm imagining How to Train Your Dragon 2. What it did for me was it was more the story about Hiccup coming of age, and I think the addition of Cate Blanchett as his mom was genius. Having Jon Snow, sorry, not whatever his real name is. Jon Snow is one of the other the dragon trappers, I think they're called, involved as well, and then having this burst of mythology that they added, I think that is what pushed it over for me. And then, to his credit, Gerard Butler, when, spoiler alert, his character dies, I felt emotional. It was the first time I felt emotional watching Gerard Butler on screen. And I know it was just him acting through voice, but it was one of those moments where you saw it and you're like, oh, crap. I'm like, both of these movies are great, but that was the moment for me where I like had something pull on my heartstrings. And for it to be Gerard Butler just makes it that much more of a shocking moment for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Chris. You.
Oh, cool. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is amazing, but How to Train Your Dragon 1, what it did for DreamWorks itself, and the fact that the story, How to Train Your Dragon 2, basically focus, as he said, on his mom, him. It's a coming of age story. How to Train Your Dragon 1 is, the through line is pretty damn simple. How can I get my dad to love me and respect me? And it basically focuses on the relationship of the father and the son. That's the through line of the entire film.
Right.
And then, of course, you have the baby dragon. He's so cute. The animation is so, and it's kind of comparing Toy Story 3 to Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
These movies are perfect. And what brings number 1 over number 2 for me is simple. It is the father-son relationship in one, and the animosity towards the father, towards the son, that isn't necessarily as prevalent in the number 2 one that it is in the number 1, because he kind of proves himself a bit. With number 2, you do get the father's death, but that kind of just feels a little. I hate to say it. It kind of feels a little too cliche that he of course died in the second, and it's a sad scene and it's an amazing scene, but it is cliche. The first movie is totally original and really doesn't have that much cliches in it. Go for it, Madeeh. Sorry.
Okay, I understand your point there, and for myself, when you say that the father-son storyline in the first one, 100%, yeah, agree. Yeah. And I think what the second one did so well was it furthered it. Like at the beginning, Hiccup is avoiding his father because he doesn't want to take over the job of chief, right? And I think that that's something that maybe it was just my point in my life where I was kind of dealing with it, but it was like at that point where my dad was like trying to get me to go into like his field sort of thing. So it was kind of a personal thing. So maybe I'm bringing that into a little bit. But I think every father-son relationship has that moment where the father and son are close, and now the son is being pulled in to something the father wants him to do, but he's not necessarily sure he's ready for, or that he's not sure if he's able to do it to the extent that his dad wants him to do. And I think that was something for me that I was like, all right, they've built on the first one. The first one was phenomenal, and all they're doing now is just building on top of it in a very successful way. And I think that having the father, the dad dying scene it's happened in a billion movies over and over again. But the reality of the fact is, it happens. Like, you always have people leave you at times when you're not expecting, and it happens right when you think that they're about to be a family again. He just met his wife again for the first time in like 10, 15 years, or whatever it ends up being. And they're thinking, oh, we're going to be together. We're going to be happy. We can be the family that we dreamed of when we were young. And then you have it taken away from them, which adds so much more to that scene. And I think that was one of the emotional portions of the movie where I was just like, okay, DreamWorks is really going for it. Like, this isn't over the hedge. This isn't any of the other crap boxes that DreamWorks has put out. This is something they've really put their care into. This is something they've really worked hard on and tried to adapt from the original and improve on as much as they can. And I think that the second one actually pulled on my heartstrings more than the first one did, even though both were amazingly complex and wonderful design movies. Animation on both of them is superb, but I think the second one just improved everything on the first one. Even if it was to a small degree, it had still made those improvements that I really loved.
You're going to find that we're not going to really be knocking each other's arguments down more than just...
No, we can't, because we both love the other movie.
It's kind of hard to do that, but the fact of the matter is, nothing in number 2 would have succeeded if number 1 didn't succeed to the highest extent that it did. And number 2, yes,
Well,
I
that's the
can
same
say,
thing with
yeah.
Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 1. Like,
Mhm.
Toy Story 3, in my personal opinion, is my favorite.
It's the
But
yeah.
again, same argument. It wouldn't be there without Toy Story 1 and 2. You have to have sequels. You can't judge based on what happened in the predecessor, I don't think. If you judge them on their individual merit,
It's
this is
just
an awful discussion, man. Like, I
yeah,
feel bad
yeah.
arguing these movies.
Yeah, but look, for the second, just to have this argument cemented, look, the second
Right.
does kind of convolute a little bit too many storylines altogether, with the whole emotional through lines that he's just experiencing all over the place. When in the first one, the emotional through line is super simple. It's between two people, and then there's a dragon. This it gets really convoluted, really complicated.
Between two people, and there's a dragon.
Yeah,
I love that
that's-
description.
That's essentially what How to Train Your Dragon is about. But yeah, overall though, you have to look at the story aspect. And what do I go back to more? The movie where there's a lot of in-depth emotional stuff, emotional baggage with a lot of growing up things that people can really relate to, but maybe hits too close to home, or just a fun adventure of a son trying to prove himself to his dad. And the simplicity of number 1 outweighs the convolutedness of number 2, even though it's a perfect convolutedness. It's still not as solid of a narrative if you're looking at the 3-act structure as a 3-act structure in number 1 is. Yeah.
You want to just cut the final thoughts after this?
Yeah.
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 I was just gonna raise that. It's time for final thoughts. So, started with Madeeh, so we'll go with him, and then we'll go to Chris, and then I'll make my decision.
All right. The reason I picked How to Train Your Dragon 2 was honestly, and you said it's the convolutedness, it still worked perfectly. And even if it is convoluted, as long as it works in a way that everyone is attached to the characters and is emotional about what is happening, and you're invested in what's happening, I think that is what makes it a better movie. The other thing that pushed this movie over the edge, the fact that Jared Butler dies, and I felt something that wasn't, oh, thank God, in a movie, I thought was just it was a shout to how well he portrayed that character. Even though it was just his voice, I was really distraught at a Gerard Butler character passing, which made me feel even more so that this movie really adapted him in a way that he could adapted him, and also made the movie a much better piece than the first one.
Oh wait, am I next?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to switch spots.
Okay.
Oh, look, no Christmas tree anymore.
No Christmas tree, no Christmas tree. Okay, look. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is a great film. How to Train Your Dragon 1 is a better, great film. Look, as I said before, How to Train Your Dragon 2, if you're looking at a 3-act structure, if it is narratively a better movie than the simplicity of number 1, it falls flat. The simplicity of number 1 is engaging, gets everybody all together, and the relationship between the father and the son is actually stronger in number 1 than it is in number 2. It's built off of in number 2, but the relationship is a little stronger cinematically when the relationship is strained. So number 1, my take, is better than number 2. This argument is a piece of crap.
There we go. So yeah, that concludes
chief comes
this
out.
round and the final main game round. This one was close. Like you guys said, these are two great movies. It was really hard to kind
I
of
hate this argument so much.
weight towards the other. I didn't come up with questions, unfortunately. But
Can we just think, what other movies outside of How to Train Your Dragon do you actually enjoy Gerard Butler in?
I actually like Olympus Has Fallen. I'm one of the few people who
See,
like that.
I liked it as a popcorn movie, but I didn't think it was a great movie. Like,
Yeah,
it's fun to watch when you're
The thing is, I would have picked
drunk
it
or
if
high on your couch.
I would have picked it, but if you chose How to Train Your Dragon against Olympus Has Fallen, I would have been fucked.
The only other one I could think of was like maybe 300, but
I don't like 300. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I can understand that. I don't know.
I don't
These are the
know. I
only
mean,
two
I guess
great movies.
Lamb and the Bounty Hunter for how bad it is.
Bounty Hunter
Can we
versus
have a
Olympus Has
worse
Fallen.
Gerard Butler movie? Can we do that? Can we have the worst Jared Butler movie
Because literally his two best are two animated movies.
that he
Yeah,
probably
it's
worked
those
like
men.
2 hours on?
Yeah. But
Oh, jeez.
see, I came down though to get back into it before speed round. Because I know Chris, I think he got some things to do after, but
It's all good.
it
I
came down.
can be a little late.
Okay.
Busy guy up here.
Honestly, it was really hard to come down to like one point that gave you won the advantage over the other, and
Dude, just flip a
I
coin.
believe
Let's go.
Chris said,
Just
yeah.
do a coin flip.
It's like
That's honestly
no,
probably the
what
most fair way to judge this match. Is like
Yeah,
flip a coin.
yeah. What do you want, Madeeh? Heads or tails?
I always call it in the air. I'm old school that way. So flip it and then we'll just yell. And no, we didn't
okay.
like Gods of Egypt. Fuck that movie.
Just flip
should've
it.
argued for God's
Just flip it.
you know what the hell. But no, what Chris said about how 2 was a little convoluted at times with the plot. Even though I disagree with that, I do have to give him the edge just for that. Even
Okay.
though, like I said, I disagree with that, but it was so close. It was something like that.
Yeah, it's the one word that you heard. Like, you know what? That one.
Yeah, it's like that point. So
Yeah,
it
fair
is
enough.
tied to
And me saying that does not mean that I hate How to Train Your Dragon 2. It's an argument.
No, we both agree. It was.
It's
no,
me
no,
digging into that movie to find a flaw.
To their credit, it's very hard to do on both of these movies.
Yeah.
So there we go. That concludes round 4. It is 2-2 now, and we are going to go into our speed round. Reminder, speed round, you'll have 30 seconds to open up your argument and then 20 seconds to kind of counter, whatever points are made by your opponent, whether you're first or second or whatever. So
It's improv. Awesome.
yeah, improv. So
Great.
kind of
Completely
fun.
blind. I hope I've seen these. If not, I'm bullshitting. All right.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh yeah. So we have The Shape of Water coming out. Some people have seen it already. Others haven't got it yet because stupid limited releases. So what's the better Guillermo del Toro blockbuster? I'm not even going to try to say his name right.
Pan's
Hellboy
Labyrinth.
or Pacific Rim? Well, it's between these two: Hellboy or Pacific Rim.
God's sakes.
Oh,
Sorry?
Pacific Rim. Oh. Say the things again so we can hear it.
Hellboy, Pacific Rim.
Oh, Hellboy.
Pacific Rim.
Alrighty. So Mindy said it first. So he'll have 30 seconds, and then
Well,
go to
technically
Chris.
Chris said it first, so but whatever.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
Okay, so
matter.
Hellboy versus Pacific Rim.
Yeah. Come
Yes.
Okay. Am I going first then?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just,
All right. The reason I picked Hellboy is because I don't care about Charlie Hunnam's acting in Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is a visually striking movie, but other than that, it's got nothing to it. Idris Elba was great. Other than that, all the characters are blah. Hellboy, you really cared about Ron Perlman's take on it. Doug Jones was phenomenal as Abe. John Hurt was amazing as the father, and the villains were a little bit forgettable, but it set up a great sequel as well, which Pacific Rim still has not done. It's yet to be seen if Pacific Rim 2 is going to be good, but I still love the original Hellboy for what it did for that franchise. Also, the fact that it was so popular that we're still...
Time. There you go. So, there you go. So, Chris, whenever you're ready.
3, 2. Pacific Rim is a giant monster movie. I love giant monster movies, and it's a fantastic adventure, and it's a great popcorn film. Yes, Hellboy has a lot of artistic value, and Doug Jones really nails his character, but do you go back to Hellboy as much as you go back to the fun-loving Pacific Rim? I don't. Hellboy has an artistic flair to it that kind of alienates its audience. Pacific Rim doesn't alienate its audience, and Pacific Rim affects and it captivates every known audience known to mankind because everybody loves kaiju. Everybody loves giant monsters.
Time.
There you go.
All right. So we'll go back to Madeeh when he's ready for 20 seconds, and then back to you after.
Oh wait, no, that's
Pacific Rim only captivated people on a visual sense. I'd prefer to have it captured on a visual and storytelling sense. Hellboy did that. Hellboy got into the backstory that people have been loving for years, and also told the story in the way that Guillermo del Toro wanted it to. And that's the most important part. Pacific Rim, I feel like he was honestly limited in some of the things he wanted to do, especially with Charlie Hunnam as the main character. I thought he was just flat and boring and no one cared.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. 3, 2. Hellboy can go to hell. Look, Hellboy. Okay, look. Wait, look. Pacific Rim is a giant monster movie. Hellboy is an obscure comic book. Nobody saw the movie. It was a bomb. Pacific Rim was a huge success. Audiences loved it. I love it. It's a great popcorn flick. Bada bing, bada boom.
Alrighty.
Can we
So,
fact check box offices on those two? 'Cause I'm actually curious as to how much they both made now.
I'm not exactly sure how much they made, but the first Pacific Rim wasn't that big of a success, as far as I remember.
That's
because
what I was thinking. I don't think either one of them were great successes.
yeah, because there was it wasn't for sure that a sequel would even come out. But I mean,
someone's looking up. I don't know if it's Aaron or your breath.
But yeah, I mean, if they have it, then they could bring it up. But you know,
Pacific Rim made $411 million off of a $190 million budget.
Okay, so I was thinking Domestic it didn't do well, but it did great.
And Hellboy made $99 million off of a. Let me look at this. Hellboy box office. I don't know where the budget is. It doesn't say budget. Whatever. It made less, but it's okay.
Yeah. So going into this argument, it was pretty close all around, but I do have to give it to Madeeh on this one because, you know, he pointed out other than the visuals, there wasn't a whole lot to Pacific Rim, but there was a whole bunch to Hellboy. So I will have to give the point to Madeeh. It's 3-2, and we'll go into our fourth question.
In the middle of my argument, I realized Hellboy was a better movie.
But I kind of got that sense, you know, in the 20-second rebuttal. But
yeah.
Hellboy can go to hell.
So this is a question very similar to one that was asked about a match or two ago. I can't remember exactly how long the match was, but what movie released this year that's not currently in a franchise deserves a sequel?
Where are you going, Ed?
Dunkirk.
All right. So Dunkirk.
Oh,
Why did I say Dunkirk? I'll go with it.
All right.
So, movie from this year that is not in a franchise, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It could be Victoria and Abdul.
Baby Driver.
Alrighty. Chris did answer first, so Chris, why does Dunkirk need a sequel?
Oh my god.
Can we screenshot this image and just
Okay. Give me a second. Okay. Dunkirk was about people evacuating an island with 4 different separate stories in the World War II. Why don't we go to Vietnam and see 4 separate anthology stories in Vietnam and call it Vietnam or something? That would be really cool. Like maybe make more anthology movies based on war and make it that a huge franchise and a series. This is so despicable, but you know, it would be amazing. It would really be amazing, guys. It would be amazing. It would be awesome. Take that to the bank.
Time.
Oh my god. God. Jesus.
Whenever you're ready.
What the hell? All right. All right. All right. Baby Driver. Everyone loved Baby Driver. Baby Driver was the talk of the town for this summer. Edgar Wright did a phenomenal job of making the soundtrack of a movie and mixing in the soundtrack so well with the plot of the movie. Obviously, you don't need to worry about Kevin Spacey being back in the sequel, so you don't need to worry about that. Spoiler alert, he died. And I think the fact that if we had a Baby Driver sequel of them kind of going around in the future after he's out of prison, I think that would be a phenomenal story that I'd love to see where he takes. Even if it doesn't follow the main characters, I think that Edgar Wright is so phenomenal with his writing and directing abilities.
Time. Alrighty.
Rebuttal.
Yep, rebuttal.
Okay. Look, Baby Driver was a jukebox musical without having any music in it. But if you go to a Dunkirk sequel, you will have a jukebox war film with an anthology element to it that you cannot get from any other franchise. Go through each war, go through separate stories with people in the war. It's so unique. Baby Driver would just get another rehash of a very fantastic edited movie that you don't necessarily have a good plot for to begin with.
All right, time. So, Madeeh, whenever you're ready.
I don't know how he's going to do this. I don't know how I did that.
I'm about to pull it out my ass. Just watch me. Hang on. Baby Driver, a sequel for Baby Driver would be much more intriguing to me than to watch another rehash of a war movie. I think war movies come out every single month by the looks of it, and I think we've known so much about the Vietnam War based on the amount of sheer force that people have put behind these movies for the last 40, 50 years. Even if it's other wars, I don't think we necessarily need to see war right now. I think we need something that cheers people up in this day and age. And Baby Driver did that for me, and I think Baby Driver, the sequel, with Edgar Wright behind the helm of writing and directing, I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I think people love it.
Okay, so that
Straight from the
concludes
annals of my ass.
that includes this speed round. To be honest, I think that was the first time someone who was judging and hosting laughed during a speed round. So I apologize if that got anybody upset.
Maintain professionalism, right?
Chris came back really strong that second one.
Really well. I was not expecting that. I'd give you props.
So, but I still think that Madeeh won that round. There's something he said about how, we don't need another war rehash and stuff, and we need something like Baby Driver. I don't know. So, yeah, I'll give Madeeh the point and the win.
We're going to erase that entire round from history. I feel like we'd be all right.
I can't believe I picked Dunkirk. I don't know why I picked Dunkirk.
All the movies that came to my head were like, oh, wait, that's a sequel. I was thinking Split right off the bat, and I was like, that's kind of already in a franchise, sort of, maybe.
And they're already making a sequel to Get Out. It's really kind of hard.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. I should have said the Emoji Movie.
I would have lost my shit. I would have loved it.
So, Madeeh, how do you feel about this game?
Oh my god! Wait, it's over?
Yeah, 4-2.
Oh my god! Oh man, Chris, hell of a game, man. Jesus. Oh my!
I tried to put up a fight.
It was something to watch. Geez, no, I'm actually really happy we actually got this done. Finally. No, it was a hell of a match. Chris, you're a phenomenal competitor. We'll talk musicals later on when you got time for me.
Alrighty, and Chris, you put in one hell of a game for sure.
Of course. I'm not really great at these movie games. If you ask Henry, if you ask Chris, if you ask even these guys, I just love to have fun. I can't believe I picked Dunkirk of everything to pick a sequel of. I hope I didn't offend anybody with that. If I did,
my god.
No, it is what it is.
Some 97-year-old war veteran's gonna be like, Chris Clark, where are you, you son of a bitch?
I still like that idea of an anthology war series. But anyway, look, this game was fun. Madeeh, you were great. And as he hinted at, he will be hopefully joining me soon for a little hint because I never had a friend like Madeeh. Never had a friend like Madeeh. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun.
Wink,
But,
wink,
guys,
nudge, nudge.
nudge, nudge indeed. But thank you guys so much for having me. Keep
Yeah.
rocking.
Absolutely. So, before we go, we're gonna see where we can find both of you guys. So, Madeeh, where can we find you at?
Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at Madeeh R, and then Facebook, Madeeh Rehman. I don't know. You guys see me commenting on things every now and then with something I think is funny. Whether it is actually funny or not, that's for you guys to decide. Hashtag watermelon shirt. Hashtag watermelon socks. I promise I will wear pants next time so I can actually show them off for you.
Hell yeah. So, Chris.
Actually, no, I can't make that promise. I'll be wearing pants.
Okay. That's all good. Chris, where can people find you at?
You can find me not wearing any pants either. I mean, I don't know why I said that. Okay, wait. Okay. You guys can find me on. You guys can find me on Twitter at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. On Take 3 Productions, you can follow them on Twitter at Take 3 Trivia. I host 2 shows. I host Suddenly Soundtracks, where I focus on a movie musical and judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides, and Family Game Night, which every weekend is a disaster on either Friday or Saturday nights. We never know when because it's always off the cuff. Or you can find me on YouTube at No Man's Land Entertainment. Bada bing, bada boom.
All right, and yeah, be sure to watch the Slightly Soundtracks. That's what it's called, right?
Suddenly Soundtracks.
Suddenly Soundtracks. Okay, I was.
Great job of plugging him.
Yeah, I know. That's really gonna give me a potential.
I'm gonna order you a pizza, Matt. I want to order you a pizza.
Oh yeah, but make sure to watch it. Hercules was the last episode, and that was a real good episode. I thought. And you got Miss Movies coming on too, right?
Oh yeah, big ups on that,
December
man.
21st. Yep.
Oh, yeah,
She's
so-
awesome. Brienne's amazing. We already recorded. She's awesome.
There you go. So make sure to check it out. They're going to be doing White Christmas. Make sure to watch all Take 3 stuff. It's all part of the worldwide movie game. Look at Full Metal Trivia, all that good stuff. You can find
For
me
the
here.
family.
Oh yeah. So you can find me here.
Everyone's related now.
Oh yeah. So you can find me here. Obviously. Don't look for me on Facebook. I'm very private with that. But yeah, make sure to follow everybody here. All the admins, Aaron, Subra, Robert, Linus. I'm such a great person when it comes
Andrew,
to admin team.
it's a
Andrew,
pleasure.
all them,
Yeah.
all those people. Find them all. Look for them. They're in the group.
Evan,
Say hi to them. There you go. Great way to
how
close
do I
out.
know more of this than you do? I'm barely here.
I know.
This is my first time
Sorry,
on camera
Andrew.
in 6 months.
Yep. I think that's everybody. There's 8 of us. I don't know. There's a lot of us. We're going to double next year, most likely. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, all that good stuff, even though I already said it. Bye. Great.